am here today with my friend, Andrew Erhardt Lewis, who is coming to us from Switzerland, even though I look like I'm in Switzerland. I'm not, I'm in Chicago. Andrew is in Switzerland, and he has some very fun stories to tell about his relative, actually his cousin, but you always called him your uncle because of the age difference, I believe, right?
Yes, correct.
And his name was Tom-Erhardt. He sadly passed away in 2019 at a ripe old age, but had wonderful stories to tell. He was a leading theatrical agent in England and got his start after World War II, right? In New York City, 1956, I believe it was, transcribing plays. And he was working for Lucy Kroll over there. And Lucy represented people like Carl Sandburg, James Earl Jones, who you told me your uncle called him Jimmy because they were close.
Jimmy Jones, yeah.
Jimmy Jones. But tell me a little bit about how you found out about a famous musical that he helped with.
My uncle didn't like spending Christmas in London. He just it was almost a superstition that he would go somewhere else. So one year, my now wife Patricia and I went with him to Malta, and we were sitting at dinner, and I asked him, and I just said, if you had to name your favorite musicals, what would they be? And he thought for a second, and he said, if I had to name a couple, I suppose the top of the list would be Sound of Music. And he paused, and he turned back, and he said, because I typed it. And I said, what? Excuse me? And he said, oh, I've never told you before. And I said, nope, you missed this one. So he proceeded to tell me the story. So at that time in New York, they were, the theater cycle was only 9 months long, and then there would be a 3-month sabbatical. And the guy who wrote The Sound of Music, the screenplay, so Rodgers and Hammerstein did the music, but the guy that actually wrote the screenplay is called
Ernest Lehman.
Ernest Lehman, yeah, that's it. And Ernest called his agent because Ernest's secretary was taking a 3-week holiday. So he called his agent and he said, do you know anyone that can type? And the agent said, yeah, you can have Tom, because we're still in the sabbatical. He can type. My uncle learned to type in World War II. He was a typist in the Philippines. That's where he did his service. So my uncle went over to Ernest Lehman's house as instructed, and he showed up. And Ernest Lehman was a real proper New Yorker. This is how my uncle describes him. And he said to my uncle, he was really excited about this show that he was writing. And he said, oh, it's about this nun, see? And she's got all these kids, see? And he just got so excited. And my uncle was, of course, taken a little bit aback, but he said, oh, okay, right. And he told me if he ever wrote a book, the title of the book would be, It's About This Nun, see? And so he went over to this chap's house every day, and he would write out the play longhand, and my uncle would type it up. And then Rodgers and Hammerstein would come over, and they would work on the music and the lyrics. My uncle would type it up. And so he did that for the 3 weeks that the playwright's secretary was on holiday. And my uncle reckons he probably typed about 60 to 70% of The Sound of Music. When he had his 90th birthday, it was who's who of the West End showed up. It was quite a fascinating.
Why wasn't I invited to this?
Yeah, it's in the post. It's in the So yeah, so he had a fascinating career. He's brilliant.
There's one other story that was in his obituary that I found entertaining, where I believe it was Hammerstein who read something that he had just typed up. And what did he say to your uncle after he read it?
My uncle was typing out all the lyrics, and Rodgers, or I think it was Hammerstein, came over and said, Tom, this is not how you spell flibbertigibbet, or whatever the word is in the song. And my uncle got really nervous, was like, oh no, I'm sorry, I'll be able to fix it. And it was just the Hammerstein's way of saying, actually, you're cool. I'm fine with you, and I can joke around with you. So after my uncle realized that, then he could, relax and he could do his job quite well. But yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much for sharing your stories today about your uncle. He sounds like he was a really amazing man. I really appreciate your time.
Not at all. Yeah. Good luck with your play. Hopefully it turns out well.
Thank you.
And now you know the background story of how it was written.
I love it.